All right. Welcome to next office hours. This is going to be going over choose self-care or choose resentment. That's the entire theme. And we're going to dive into what that means, a little bit of details around that, and ultimately you're going to walk away with a clear understanding of how you can choose self-care and the actionables behind that, or how you may ultimately have already chose building resentment in your life and what you can do about that as well. Before I jump into everything, I'm just going to drop a couple things into the comments. For example, if you're watching this live or you're watching the replay, you can win a $50 LOF gift card. Be the first person to comment on whatever platform you're watching this on. Take a screenshot, send it to my email, lifeofafighter@gmail.com, and you'll be able to redeem your gift card. So I'm going to drop that info into the chat as well, and they'll pretty much hit the ground running. Now, at the end of this, first, I actually prepared an actual presentation for it. So I wanted to continuously take feedback and look at kind of what the data is showing. And it shows that like being able to have visuals for you guys, being able to have some insight becomes helpful, along with the data that I'm going to be using to back everything that I'm going to talk about. So I actually have a slide deck that's going to go along with this, and then some data points. And at the end of this, I'm also going to share some products related to self-care and some different things to look for that you can kind of utilize for that. All right. Let me just pull up. You know what? Instead of just like, I'm just going to type it into the comments. It's going to be easier that way. Okay. When all right. I'm going to put it into, apparently I got to do it in 2 comments because it's not long enough. But again, I'll set this up in the comments, and then we will get into the actual slide deck. Okay. What I will always say is, while this time actually like went as scheduled and as planned, always make sure you're following, subscribing, because sometimes I honestly, even today, I was debating on popping up a little bit earlier if I could, moving it back, because sometimes life is just going to happen, and got to be ready for it. So if you guys are following and subscribed, you're going to get notifications if we need to, and if and when I change that pivoting time. So, all right, let's officially dive into it. So most resentment isn't caused by other people, which is probably going to be a little bit of a mind blower, right? But hopefully that makes a little bit of sense, and we'll dive into that. It's caused by what we've been neglecting in ourselves, hence the self-care. Tonight, I want to challenge the idea that being selfless is always good, especially when it comes to your health, energy, and well-being, and present the notion of how being selfish can actually be beneficial for your health, energy, and well-being. And we're going to actually specifically define it. I'm going to define it, and hopefully you guys will be able to share any questions or comments you have as we're going through this. So feel free to drop it in the comments as we're going through this if something feels unclear, uncertain. And again, I want to be very particular on the wording here, because selflessness and selfishness can kind of create some triggering concepts. And there's the audio really quick. I just want to drop it in the chat. So let's just like cover our bases here. All right, so let's pull up our actual slide deck here so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. And then again, I have products related to this that I'm going to be diving into. And if you want to see those, you can see it on Amazon and TikTok as well. We have different products featured on both. But that being said, let's do a little screen share here so I can pick the proper slide. Boom. I think that should be it. Let's make sure this is yes. Okay, perfect. Let's go into present mode. And I'm going to make sure that this is actually popping up. So what's cool is I actually have my TV right here. So we're going to go on, make sure that everything is lining up the way it's supposed to, because now that I'm in presentation mode, I can't actually see everything on my screen. But with technology, I can actually see on my TV. Gotta love tech, y'all. Actually, did I preset it? Let's see. All right. Either way, so we're going to talk about empowerment, right? A combination of choosing self-care and quote unquote what can be perceived as selfishness and embracing that journey. So self-care unplugged. Let's actually kind of like define that a little bit and look at what that is ultimately going to mean. So I wanted to first just share that from a visual perspective. Now, oh snap, there it is. What's up, Rob? Choose resentment a lot. Oh yeah, absolutely. Being selfish is beneficial. Yes, Rob knows. You know, Nina knows what's up. Yeah, I see you guys. So yeah, it can slide deck. Is this a free summer? Yeah, you see it. So yeah, and I appreciate you being like honest, where you can choose resentment a lot. I could agree. It's because I'm not showing up for 100%. So let's again talk about what is self-care and selfishness. Rob, who's jumping in the comments, you know, he's been my best friend for like literally decades, and I can walk my way through and rationalize a lot of things. But here's the legitimate perspective, and I want to give some data points to kind of back this. But also, if you guys want to say like, hey, I'm going to like give pushback on that, or you want to have some clarity, I always welcome that. I want to hear it. So I actually just realized I screen shared the wrong slide deck. So let's reset that and let's utilize this one. Boom. I'm going to go to here, screen share. Beautiful. And again, when we're talking about self-care, hold on, let me just properly stage this. I'm getting everything kind of situated here. Let's open this puppy up. I mean, you know me, and yeah, you know I'm a resentful person. Yeah, I get it. I get it. We can all be there. So let's actually kind of get this properly staged. I'm here for this. Yeah. And I'm going to kind of position, recalibrate how we want to present this. So I'm going to go into presentation mode. So here you can just see a black and white, but let's actually go through the full boom empowerment here. Okay. I'm actually going to pull up a cleaner presentation version of that. Okay. Bam. So in the meantime, while we're kind of getting all this stuff pulled up, right? Let's just talk about what I'm curious from you guys. What do you actually think about when you think self-care and being selfish versus selfless? So that's like, I think an important thing to kind of go through is you can either intentionally be picking self-care and potentially what can seem to be selfless, or you can ultimately be picking resentment over time. I'll give you guys some like real world examples, then I'll back it with some science. We can go through some more definitions. And when we think about self-care and kind of like unplugging, there's a couple of categories. So traditionally, I think about self-care, right? It's like, okay, I'm taking time for myself. But what can kind of show up as what seems to be self-care can actually be avoidance. And what I mean by avoidance is like, oh, I'm just going to like lock myself in a room and just like not deal with anything. Or I'm going to just like I'm just going to like binge eat food and not really take care of anything like that. That's what we would consider more of the avoidance, less of the actual self-care. When it comes to self-care, it's actually prioritizing your own self and your own needs. And that could be sleep. It could be like social time. It could be like not having social time. It could just be, again, being able to unplug. And I've talked about like digitally detoxing on different platforms before in different ways. And that can be a part of self-care. Being able to, like, for example, on Sundays for the most part, and honestly, this is what I'm going to probably do moving forward is I'm going to shift our office hours where I'm probably going to take all of Sundays off. Like I don't do calls. The only thing I do is office hours now. And I got to be honest, I've been kind of sitting with it and meditating and going into my own kind of like self-care. I just don't see it serving in the same capacity. I feel like it's actually disingenuous to say like, hey, you know, I want to set all these boundaries and do all this stuff, but I actually don't do it in my own life. So this is kind of like where it gets to show up for me, and I get to like walk the walk, as it were. So I'll pull up the slide deck here and get back to it. So first we're going to this idea of empowerment, right? And then we're going to, let's see if I can hide the sidebar. Yeah, look at that. I got technology going. We're going here. So let's go self-care unplugged. Okay. And being able to think about whether that's with technology, whether that's in our relationships, whatever that looks like, but being able to dive into that. And then essential self-care practices. So we're talking about physical health, and that can categorize nutrition, exercise for just an overall well-being, setting realistic goals. And again, we talked about this in the past, right? Not even necessarily goals, but realistic identities that we can go to. Mine's going to be devotion for the year. And then also having mindfulness practices, whether it's, again, meditation, whether it's journaling, whether it's just how we show up in our conversations, but being able to have some of these basic self-care practices. Now, the other piece of this is also, this is just like a very kind of like narrow view. There's a variety of pieces to this that can expand and collaborate and explore, but it's just an important piece. And one of the things I want to talk about, I was mentioning before, is, again, I've got some data to back with this. So the first thing I want to talk about is the burnout component. So if we are constantly showing up for others and you're not taking care of yourself, it can lead to burnout. That's one of the variables. And what happens when we do have burnout is that can lead to eventual resentment, not only to ourselves, but the people closest to us, whether it's our family, whether it's our partner, whether it's our children, whether it's maybe our boss, our coworkers, our friends. There's a variety of ways that that resentment can show up, and then how we actually kind of implement things around resentment. But again, burnout explains approximately 30 to 40% of variance in relationship dissatisfaction among caregivers. So here, let me reread that to you and we'll break down what that means. Okay, so burnout explains approximately 30 to 40% of variance in relationships dissatisfaction among caregivers. So basically, in layman's terms, yeah, Ludo, what's up, homie? Get another like best friend of mine for decades jumping in the chat. I see you, homie. So we're talking about, again, the idea of self-care or resentment. And this particular data point is 30, 40% of variance in relationship dissatisfaction among caregivers can come from burnout. Okay, so that's basically meaning that a dissatisfaction of a relationship with someone that we're taking care of. And maybe that's, again, when we think about a caregiver, that could be a family or a loved one. It can also be in a professional capacity. So when we think about caregivers, it's not just, okay, most of the time it is loved ones. But if you work in a medical setting or a hospital setting, like Nina, we could talk about this, or I've worked for like different hospital settings. Rob, you know, you've worked in different hospital settings. The idea of we can have dissatisfaction in our relationships being a caregiver, not only to the person that we are caregiving, but to those in that immediate circle and just in our lives. So basically, you can see a drop in your relationship satisfaction, 30 to 40% from having burnout. Okay. So that means you're not actually able to take care of yourself. For example, let's say your loved one, your partner, your spouse, they get cancer, God forbid, or they have Alzheimer's or some variation of something that's out of their control, or even within their control, and you're taking care of them. You're giving up your life, your quality of life, and you're showing up for them. That's going to lead to the resentment and that burnout and a lot of these things we're talking about. So 30 to 40% of the dysfunction in relationships can be attributed to burnout, which can, again, lead into resentment. And a lot of times that burnout's coming from a lack of self-care, not being able to prioritize the things that I just shared in this kind of slide deck, which is being able to have physical exercise and movement, being able to have quality nutrition going into your body, being able to have identity-based goals you're working towards. For example, I'm a devoted man, so I get to be devoted to my health. Having that devotion means I get to show up to exercise. I get to show up in my mobility. I get to show up in my meal prep and all of those other pieces. Well, I get to show up as a father, right? I could be a devoted father, but where I can lead to potential resentment when I know it shows up for me is if I'm not able to exercise on a weekly basis, ideally on a daily basis, I become quite crabby, quite resentful quite quickly. So being able to know what those thresholds look like and being able to set the time for it, even if you don't immediately know, hey, I need X many minutes of movement, prioritize movement, prioritize nutrition, prioritize mindful practices, whether it's prayer, journaling, meditation, whatever that looks like for you. And then ultimately setting measurable goals and process-oriented things that are related to an identity with that. And that's a huge part of self-care. So now let's talk about burnout. So I use this data point about burnout. Let's kind of just go back to this visual. I think is helpful. One of the things I've been experimenting with, let me know if you guys are tracking with this and you find value in it, is adding visuals to it. And also when I like repurpose the content. So we got, again, burnout and recognizing the signs. This is an important one. So when it comes to recognizing signs, there's going to look a varying degree of differences here. But one of the key things I invite when it comes to burnout as well as depression that I've seen come up time and time again is if the things that bring you the most joy no longer do that for you. For example, I'm gonna use Luda. I hope you don't mind. I'm gonna use this since you popped up in the chat. I have a great relationship with my homie Luda. We've been best friends for like 30 plus years, right? And one of the things I think about when I think about Luda is music and video games and like comics. So I'm gonna just use video games. So for example, if me and Luda, like we both like playing video games and we're buddies, right? And I no longer find the same joy from playing video games, or Luda doesn't find the same joy from playing video games. That might be an example of burnout. Okay. Or for me, I know it shows up if I'm, burnt out with the kids or even work or my relationships, and I don't have the same satisfaction from going to the gym, from going to do jujitsu, from doing Muay Thai, from doing the physical things that I truly enjoy. That's how I know burnout is popping up for me. And that's an important piece to recognize some of these signs, because a lot of times we can be in almost denial, like, no, I'm fine. Or we rationalize it and create this argument of like, this is what's supposed to be. I just got to suck it up, right? Suck it up, buttercup. Or this is what parents do. I notice honestly a lot in moms, obviously in my relationships, not only for my kids, but in the mothers in my own life, like my aunt, my mom, my stepmom, like all these women that are amazing women, right? And they show up. But what I've noticed is if they choose to, not they always do or don't, but if they choose to not take time for self-care, there can be an interesting dynamic of resentment and burnout that comes into play with that. So with that being said, that's some of the things that you can like look and recognize for. And now let's dive into it a little bit more. So the key strategies here. So identify symptoms of burnout early on. So if you start to notice, hey, I normally will do like video games or hang with my friends or do these things, and I'm like feeling less and less inclined, that's a key symptom to look for right away. Another thing, when it comes to the strategic side of it and boundaries, establish clear limits to protect your well-being to avoid burnout. This is like recognize the signs early, look at some of those things, and then check them off. Be like, oh, I got to do something with that. The other piece to help from reaching burnout is have clear boundaries in place. Being able to have clear kind of fence lines where you're like, all right, for example, one of the boundaries I'm going to implement is I don't take phone calls or like business calls on Sundays, but moving forward after the month of January, I have a couple like podcasts and things scheduled. I'm not going to do office hours on Sundays. I'm not going to do any calls on Sundays. I'm just going to do family time on Sundays. That's like what it's going to be. It's going to be like, if I'm going to church, if I'm meditating, if I'm journaling, spending time with my daughters, with my partner, with my friends, but I'm not going to be doing like anything business related, content related, office hours, none of that. Like really doesn't matter how much money you're going to offer me. It's just not going to kind of be a thing anymore. So that's something I've learned to establish as a boundary that helps me from the burnout side. So it's not like, at least I have one day a week that's predictable, because what I've been using Sundays for is I don't do coaching calls and business meetings, but I still do office hours. And I really love this, honestly, but I just find it's like literally every single day I'm doing something. I don't even get one day. So that's an important thing of boundaries. This also piggybacks breaks. Take regular breaks to recharge your mind. Not only like on a weekly basis, like Sundays are going to be my break, but on a daily basis, I take a lunch 12 to 1. And that's my time to work out. That's my time to eat, to hydrate, to do all the things that I like have checked off that I found important. Working out, hydrating, eating, those are the key things for me. Now, I end up live streaming those. So a lot of times during the week, Mondays and Tuesdays especially, you can catch me on a live stream working out. But that's my break time from like what I would consider work. I don't necessarily feel like I have to be on. I just work out. I kind of set things up, but in office hours is where I'm like presenting, experimenting, hence this even presentation right here. So that's like a little bit of the difference that I like to incorporate and something to keep in mind here. So now the other ideas, resentment, untangling emotions. So we're going to get into that here in a second as well. And like, what does that mean? What we can do, navigating resentment in life. But before we go into that, I want to pause here. And I always like to like tag in some of the slides and then some data relating to it. So another variable I think is interesting just from a numerical standpoint, sleep deprivation reduces emotional regulation by 60% and increases emotional reactivity by up to 70%. So what that means is if you are losing sleep, less than 7 hours of sleep per night, over a long enough period of time, you are going to lose up to 60% of your emotional regulation, which is a fancy of saying you're going to lose up to 60% of your ability to calm yourself down, to not emotionally freak out, which can also pair into resentment. Like if you're both simultaneously sleep deprived, your resentment's going to go up and your ability to like calm yourself down and regulate yourself is going to be impacted. So that creates a really tricky dynamic and storm, especially like I can say like Carrie and I have gone through, so I've even gone through with my ex and I, with the kids, like sleep deprivation, being unkind to each other, having like more conflict or disagreements or things like that, and being able to recognize, okay, what if this is mine? What if this is yours? And how do we navigate this? So being able to be mindful of like, hey, I got to take some time to catch some sleep. So what that can look like, for example, in a parenting dynamic is, hey, I need you to tag in tonight when it comes to sleep time with the kids, or I need you to like, depending on like, I'll use again, our exact situation is Carrie's still breastfeeding Hope. So she prefers her, but like, hey dude, pump milk. I will feed her in the middle of the night so you can at least sleep in. And even if she wants you for comfort, I'll take her into the other room so we can start to build up a little bit of a kind of like sleep situation that's conducive for catching up or regulating ourselves. And let's say you don't have kids, you're just a high performer, or you're an athlete. If you are working so hard, you're gravitating towards working so hard that you actually don't prioritize sleep, then you're not actually going to be able to regulate yourself when it's time to calm down. And again, you're going to be more emotionally reactive by up to 70%. And in like work situations, you don't want to be reactive. And even in athletic situations, you want to be reactive. People can exploit that, whether it's combat sports or other types of athletics. You can exploit that and it can be used against you. So I think that's a really interesting piece. I just wanted to pause. So let's go back into, again, the screen sharing and the dynamics related to, again, resentment and emotional regulation. So again, navigating resentment in real life, identifying the source, understanding where resentment originates can empower the change and transformation. So being able to look at, okay, and this is a lot of times even like using like journals. I got 2 new journals actually in here right now. And I have a variety of other journals that I use on a daily basis. Like for me, this is my planner. And then I have like really 3 journaling tools that I've using lately. This is my daily stoic journal. I do a morning and a PM reflection and journal topic. And I do some other like journaling. And the point of me bringing these up is it, to me, I find that really helps me like reflect inward and like reflect on the day, even using prayer and meditation to think about, okay, where's this resentment coming from? Where am I not choosing myself, and where that can be leading to resentment, and taking, again, even if it's 5 minutes, I usually, it's for me, it's a minimum effective dose is 3 minutes of meditation and prayer in the morning. And then it's taking another 3 to 5 minutes to journal, and then 3 to 5 minutes in the evening to journal. So it's a total of, 13 to 15 minutes on a daily basis, but it's not even consecutively. That to me has been massive for reflecting. Now, again, I still have my emotional regulation challenges and all of those things, like calming down and, not letting my opinions get the best of me. But that becomes massive to saying, oh, cool, I need to prioritize movement and getting out for a walk. Or I need to prioritize when I'm eating or being able to sleep or things like that. And then also communicating assertively. Expressing feelings clearly fosters healthier relationships. But this goes back to, how do we set ourselves up to express things clearly and not be emotionally dysregulated? So if you're getting adequate sleep, you're going to have a better time sharing where you're coming from being emotionally dysregulated. So again, being able to communicate very clearly and logically. And then lastly, practicing forgiveness. Letting go of grudges leads to emotional freedom. It's like kind of taking that monkey off your back or putting a weight down instead of choosing to carry it. The analogy I like to give is like, imagine you're carrying a backpack that has a bunch of weight and stones and rocks in it, and you're carrying it around. You're like, man, my back's getting sore. It's heavy. Why not put the backpack down? Or the real question is, throughout this process, first figure out, like, why am I picking up all these rocks and putting it in the backpack in the first place? Because even if you do put the backpack down, eventually you're going to pick it back up again and pick up more rocks. So to me, that's part of like even going back into this idea of identify the source, communicate it, be like, hey dude, stop it. Because then you notice like, oh man, I noticed like throughout the day, my kids are giving me rocks, or my partner's giving me rocks, or at work, I'm getting handed rocks and I'm choosing to accept them, put them on my backpack. It's like, communicate, hey, I can't take that rock for you right now. Where I can't, I'm sorry. I have too many rocks as is. And then even when they have, and that you've communicated your boundaries clearly, incorporating forgiveness, saying, you know what? I don't hold it against you. I'm going to just continuously hold this line, hold this boundary, and keep showing up. Because again, people aren't always maliciously thinking, oh, how can I exploit this person? It's just part of the pattern that we've created and that they may be used to. And also, hey, I see you on YouTube. What's going on, Sarah? Thanks for dropping by, saying hey. So now, identify and finding yourself. identity. That's like a big piece. And that's why, like, I think the one word workshop becomes impactful. And we talked about this weeks prior, not only for setting goals, but your own identity and who you get to be, the I am statements of I am, for example, like my contract to myself, not just my I am statement for the year, but I have a contract I actually have to myself, how I get to live. I'm a vulnerable, authentic, finishing man. So I'm vulnerable, like I will freely share. I'm authentic, so I don't have to put on a mask and pretend. And then I finish. If I start something, I finish and I see it through. That's something I've been able to reflect on and learn. And sometimes if if I don't feel like an outcome or a result is going the way I want it to, I'll step away. Or if it feels like it might be too hard or too easy or just whatever the thing is, I can do 100%, no problem, but I do 100% at short bursts. Imagine if I did 100% of the time and I finished things through, which is even with these, what I'm talking about in January, while I'm seeing through my schedule for January, I'm finishing out my agreements and then I'm reevaluating in the new month and being able to finish out the entire year of my one word. And that goes back to in the identity side of things, even my word for the year, devotion, being devoted. I'm going to see that through and I see the impact of that. So again, identity, finding yourself, cultivating your inner strength, explore values, reflect on what truly matters to you. And why, again, this is part of the self-care act. And this is why I like all these journals that I have. And it helps to alleviate resentment, because if you know what your values are and you have the ability to communicate them, you are less likely to turn away from yourself and you are more likely to make time for your self-care and again, communicate that. Next, embrace change. Adaptability is key to personal growth and resilience. So I even like embrace transformation. Change is something that can go back and forth. Transformation is a caterpillar transforms into a butterfly. A butterfly doesn't go back to a caterpillar, for example. But I can like change outfits and I can change back into the other outfit. So I like even more than the word change, even transformation. Embrace transformation. Transform into this next version of yourself. And sometimes that's uncomfortable. I love this quote by Andrea Gibson that goes, I asked the sun, what was the Big Bang like? And the sun said, it hurts to become. And it doesn't always have to be painful, but sometimes it is uncomfortable transforming and becoming the thing. So being able to embrace that and noticing, again, having those core values, going back to what are your values? Is it adaptability? Is it resilience? Is it courage? Is it communication? Is it creativity? Whatever those things are, embrace those things and be able to like step into that. For me, again, it's vulnerability, authenticity, and finishing. And then seek support. Surround yourself with those who uplift you. Whether that's like been an interesting one. And this is where I do see a lot of like value in like religious circles, whether it's whatever your religion is, but like turning to God, why it becomes such a powerful thing. And why even like gyms and martial arts gyms, anyone that I've been a part of that I've really gravitated towards, it's become a support group. It's been a community, a tribe, like that really I feel uplifted by in a variety of ways. And that's massive. And that's why it's so like appealing. Even in an academic setting, certain classes I've actually been more attracted to because I felt a connection to the people in them versus others. So being able to seek support. And then again, whether that means like in your friend group, your social group, in a spiritual component, in a like physical setting, in the gyms you go to, or maybe in a professional setting. And utilize resources, right? Maybe that's coaching. Maybe that's seeking out therapy. Maybe it's talking to another professional in different capacities where you might need that support, but being able to seek it where it's appropriate. And when it comes to that, speaking of which, really quick, I'll just do a quick plug. And then I also want to pause and see, let me know in the chat if this is kind of like making sense to you, if this is adding value. I always love to hear that. And I'll also take the silence from it that it may not be doing that. And that's okay too. But then I get to know I get to adjust these things and make some pivots. And then if you're watching a replay of this, feel free to even drop comments for the replay because I want to know if there's value to that, how we can continuously adjust and show up and support. And lastly, so I'll do my screen share here of like, again, if you want support and you're looking in a professional capacity for support, feel free to reach out. Again, this is our work line. You can call or text it. This is an email and our website. You can go to our website right now and actually getting a 14-day coaching program along with a coach assigned to you. So you can have the physical fitness, the meal plan, the coaching support, accountability built into that, as well as now more than ever, you can actually use your health insurance to cover our coaching and a variety of things that we offer, from the workouts to the meal plan to our coaching, the accountability, the health education. Now we're incorporating things for our health retreat. We have a variety of things that you can utilize and leverage from that standpoint. So that's pretty much it. I wanted to like experiment with using a slide deck and some of the numbers and things related to that. But now the last thing I want to bring it home with is some additional data points. So regular physical activity is associated with higher relationship satisfaction and stress reliance. So let's recap that and let me apply that for you. So again, regular physical activity is associated with higher relationship satisfaction and stress reliance. So even if one person in a relationship, so you're in a relationship with two people, maybe more, even if just one of those people in the relationship works out, there's a reported higher satisfaction. So if me and Carrie are, obviously we're in a relationship, we both exercise. So I think that's a huge contributing factor to our like quality and, quality of relationship, even through really challenging parts, but being able to exercise. But I notice when Carrie doesn't exercise for a period of time, or I don't because I'm injured or something like that, we have more challenges, to put it simply. And when we go back to the gym, we go back to exercise, or she's going back to like meditation and yoga, and I'm getting back into jujitsu or Muay Thai or weight training or running or whatever the things are, our relationship dynamics shift. And I would invite you experiment that in your relationships as well. Not just only in a couples and a spouse situation, but even like any relationship you want to improve. Start exercising, you'll see your relationships positively impact that based on just what the numbers will show. And that goes back to, again, choosing self-care. So you could choose to, again, physically move, or you could choose to be resentful of yourself, of your partner, of the people around you. But try just a little bit of movement, like literally 3 minutes of movement. Go for a walk for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes. 15 minutes is what I've seen from a data point, one of the most effective thresholds. If you can do 15 minutes walking on a daily basis, that's massive for a variety of things, from cardiovascular health to emotional regulation to stress relief to even body composition impacts to lubrication for your joints, for just getting outside into the environment, your mental health. So many aspects of that can be positively impacted. And again, another data point I'll share is chronic suppression of personal needs increases psychological distress and resentment. So let's recap that again. So basically, when you're constantly suppressing your needs and your wants, it's going to increase your distress or stress and uncomfortable dynamics and overall resentment. So the more you turn on yourself, the more you don't prioritize your own self for whatever reason. As a mom, you're saying, hey, I got to work full time. Plus I also have to show up for a partner. Plus I have to pay all the bills. Plus I got to do all this stuff. That's going to impact your ability to not only have a positive quality of life, but your relationships. You're going to have resentment. And then, hey, what's going on? I see on TikTok, Nia, thank you for dropping. Hey, again, make sure you take that screenshot of your comment, email it to me, get your $50 LOF gift card. And then the last data point is parental self-care predicts greater patience and emotional availability. So let me repeat that again. As a parent, if you are implementing self-care, that is going to predict greater patience and emotional availability for your children as well as the people around you. So if you want to show up as a better parent, take care of yourself, plainly and simply. And then an old school, very simple analogy that I love, that's like, think about when you go on a plane, if you've ever flown before, they always tell you, what's the first thing they tell you? In a case of an emergency, put your mask on first, then take care of the people around you. Why is that? It's because if you pass out, you're no good to anyone. And yeah, for what I just saw like a video, it's like, I think in the first 10 seconds, the cabin pressure will change. So you got 10 seconds basically to put your mask on, and you try and put on your kid's mask first or something. Within those 10 seconds, they're not going to get your mask on. Cool. You're not going to be any good passed out. Your kid's going to be freaking out, and it's not going to work well. But so the same thing carries over in life, right? You put yourself out there for everybody else, and you end up turning your back on your own like health, your own wellness, your own care. And you end up having a stroke when you're in your 50s. That's not helping your children. That's not helping your family. I'm just saying that because sleep deprivation, for example, if you get less than 7 hours of sleep chronically, about 5 hours of sleep or less chronically, that can increase your chance of stroke by 400%. So it's just an easy data point and predictability, which I'm sure a lot of parents can relate to. You're staying up to take care of the parents, take care of the house, then you're working, you're doing all this stuff. And again, I'm making it sound super simple, and simple doesn't always mean easy, right? It is that simple, but it doesn't always make it easy. The important piece is being able to show up for yourself and being able to do that first, and then being able to take care of everyone else around you, which I know that sounds selfish, right? But the difference here, and here's what I want to create and be very, very clear on. where you can recognize a false sense of selfishness compared to like true value self-care, quote unquote selfishness, is the false selfishness where you're just being truly selfish and it's not valuable in a self-care capacity, is you're avoiding. You're not actually doing anything to build yourself up, to improve your mental health, to improve your physical health, to take care of your own self. You're just creating distance. You're avoiding. You're running. So I'll give you an example. If I am quote unquote taking self-care time and I'm not doing anything with it, and let's say I'm going to just go out and not deal with anything. I'm just going to isolate myself in my room for 2 hours. It's not even recharging. I'm just causing more problems by letting my text messages fill up, my work fill up, creating more, resentment with my spouse, and I'm not taking care of anything. And I'm just feeling the same way starting tomorrow. That is a false selfishness kind of approach versus a value of self-care, quote unquote selfishness, is, hey, I'm going to take that same time and I'm going to journal, or I'm going to meditate, or I'm going to level myself up as far as my work or my physical fitness or meal prepping, or again, going to do jujitsu, which impacts our mental health and our quality of life at the end of the day. So I'm going to kind of pause at that. I'm going to take a second. I'm going to hydrate. Speaking of self-care, I'm going to let this seltzer kind of hopefully not completely explode and go over the top. Check, see if I have any questions coming in. See, I thought I let it kind of like air out enough, and I didn't. Just so I'm thirsty, y'all. Thirsty. And yeah, we're gonna have to let this air out a little bit more. And while I'm doing this, what I will say is we kind of went through all of that. So I'm going to take maybe like 5 or 10 minutes here to go through like hand 2, maybe 3 products that I have that I think are good examples of how you can incorporate some self-care right into your day. You can order these tools and get self-care going. I also want to give you again some clear actionables to recap in case it wasn't clear from the presentation, from some of the takeaways that you can do without investing any money. These are things that you can just do starting right now. Number 1, you can start moving more. Literally take 3 to 5 minutes, even 15 minutes if you haven't, just start walking, moving your body. Do body weight squats, do push-ups, pull-ups, a plank, sit-ups, go for a walk, stretch even, shadow box. There's so many resources online. Literally, wherever you're watching this, whatever platform, whether it's YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, Amazon Live, I promise you, I have exercise videos that make it accessible where you don't need any equipment. You can find something. And there's other people there as well. If you don't trust me for whatever reason, you can find exercise and physical activity things that hit the mark for you. Even if that's golf, even if it's like frisbee, paintball, whatever the thing is, you can find something that'll get your body moving that can bring you some joy. Find some joyful movement. That's number 1. Number 2, start to observe what you're putting into your body. Simply put, you don't even have to remove anything from your life. Just add hydration, add water, add an extra 16 ounces of fluid into your life, ideally water, or something that's calorie free with not a bunch of added garbage to it. That alone will have a positive impact on your function, on your mental health, on how you're feeling. Then when we look at your just mindfulness practice, being able to, whether it's prayer, whether it's meditation, whether it's journaling, even if it's art and creativity, like I put some things in the carousel on Amazon specifically. Like I'm looking around because I have a couple different like markers and paintbrushes. I even have some like notepads here, different colors. I'm going to send out some gratitude and thank you letters, doing things like that. That's like mindfulness practice, writing down like, hey, here's a list of things I have to be grateful for, or journaling on different points, or like in my, like I have a shadow work journal. It's like, there's a gratitude list that actually prompts in here. Or being able to, I like this in the internal family systems workbook. They have like a little circle where you like write out all your own self attributes. And like, I actually did this with my kids to help me out a little bit. And like, yeah, there's things like courage, persistent, curious, connected, like just listing different things that you have as positive attributes about yourself or that you identify with and you want to continue to identify with. Being able to have mindfulness practice. And speaking of that, one of the things I literally just got in, this is by, I've worked with this company before. They have like gifted me products. They don't pay me to like say anything in particular, but they for sure gift me things. I'm actually looking at the easiest way to open this. I'm going to go, this is a dotted journal. The thing I love about a dotted journal is it's like a free range kind of a option. So what that means is it's just a blank page and it has dotted space like a grid, and you can be super creative with how you want to use it. You can write, you can literally use it like a traditional journal, but you can also do like visual. So it's literally just like a blank page with dots. You can make squares. It's literally like you can use it in a variety of ways. There's like the dotted journal strategy book around that, but I like things like this. And then they also have even these like little tabs you can see at the back end to give you some insight and some like kind of direction to highlight, hey, do I want this to be around finance? Do I want it to be around fitness? Do I want it to be around like family time, goal setting? What are we doing with it? But being able to have these different cues and prompts, just taking 5 minutes a day to literally just start writing. And if you don't know where to start, one of the most effective tools I've seen is literally write down what you're thinking in that moment. So like, I don't know what to write right now. This feels stupid, but I'm going to do it anyway because I've said I'm going to do it for 5 minutes and I don't know what to write after this. And you literally just write down what you're thinking. You have a timer set for 5 minutes and you do it. And before you know it, all of a sudden you start pulling a thread like, wow, that was fascinating. Or to stay organized. This is also part of self-care to me. Or you're going to just choose resentment, resenting your prior self for not setting yourself up for success, or blaming it on your spouse, or blaming it on your boss, or blaming it on your kids. And even if you're not consciously doing that resentment, it's going to show up. And like, again, I like sometimes that's even like starting to yell more, or being able to know some more emotional outbursts and things like that, which can come from a variety of places, but especially with that. And then another one I have is the Daily Planner 2.0. So how it works, they give you a full breakdown. I actually I've been enjoying my Wilkie ADHD planner, but they're actually sold out right now. So I want to have backup plans. I like to experiment with different planners and learn different things. And the Clever Fox company, they sent me a weekly planner as well, which I like, but I don't actually use it for a day-to-day planner because it just doesn't hit the marks for me. I'm so used to the ADHD one, but I actually like using it to track my workouts. So when I don't use my app and I'm doing my live streams, if you guys have ever watched my live streams, you've seen me use my weekly planner. It's a little bit bigger. I actually have right here that I will write down my workouts in. And I'll just say, like, for example, you can see on this day, this is my workout. These are my supersets, 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, 3A, 3C, 3B, like reps, sets, all that good stuff. And then I just track it throughout the day. Because like the way they broke it down is like, I don't feel like I can adequately write down all the stuff I have to do that day. It's really for the whole week, which this could be helpful if there are bigger theme things you want to get done on the week, like habit tracking, skills, main goals. It's not enough specificity on the day-to-day, but I like it for workouts. But on the daily planner, I thought this one would be a little bit more of an opportunity where I can lay out more of the day, still have my to-do list on the bottom. So it's got about, eight little things to do on your to-do list, rate your productivity 1 to 10. And then it has the day-to-day breakdown, today's priorities, 3 priorities, main goal. It's okay. Again, I still think it leaves something longing for the ADHD brain, but this is way more preferable for my brain chemistry than the weekly one. So I wanted to just have that as a cross comparison. And again, as another tool, you don't have to use any of this stuff. You can literally just use, again, a notebook, that dotted journal, be able to just have that. To me is going back to the mindfulness practice. And lastly, when it comes to the self-care, even just being able to get like, I tag some things in the carousel, like an eye massager, neck massager. We actually have a foot massager that I got for Carrie for Christmas. She absolutely loves. So after, let's say she works or has a long day with the kids, her kind of routine right now is she does a foot bath, a little like salt, Epsom salt foot bath and scrub. Then she does the massager, a little heated neck pad as well. Has some downtime, even if it's 15 to 30 minutes. And that's something that I would encourage all of you out there watching, from parents to professionals, athletes, whatever. Find, even if it's starting with 5 minutes in the beginning of your day and the end of your day, find those as anchor points. That's a little bit, again, I won't go into too far the details of all the products. Honestly, you got to get baby Hope to bed. And this is another thing I would say when it comes to choosing self-care and almost being selfish to a degree. And then also you're choosing resentment. So I'm honestly being a little bit selfish and doing my own self-care in an aspect of being able to do this live stream. And I'll give you a sense. Like, so part of it is work, but I actually do really enjoy this. I enjoy like talking, creating. To me, this is creation right now. I'm creating hopefully value and insight to bring it to you guys. But one thing I've learned is this balancing act of, okay, I can do this self-care time. If I don't get this done, I will start to build resentment against Carrie or my kids for like not being able to do this. However, I can be very selective on where I position it. So the self-care component is, okay, is it self-care? Yes, this is recharging. This is great. But I want to have one day a week where I'm not like performing in any capacity. I get to choose to do it. So I'm going to move it to probably Saturday or Wednesday or another day in the week. And I'm not choosing resentment. The other aspect sometimes to self-care is not doing anything, right? Like by not having to work and being mindful of how it might be impacting others as well. And what I mean by that is being very like intelligent and communicative. So asking like, hey, Carrie, like, how long do I have? Right. Instead of saying, all right, cool, I'm just going to go for an hour and a half. I'm going to go for 45. I'm about 45-minute mark right now. I'm going to hop off. That goes back to like, I'm choosing self-care by doing this. And then when I repurpose the time in the future to another day, I still get to communicate, hey, Carrie, how long are you cool with me doing this and tagging in and holding it down with the kids while I'm doing this? Even for the gym, like, hey, I'm going to communicate, hey, we're going to the gym, workout's important to me, but how long are you cool with this? So it's not just like an open-ended, because that can build, even with us doing self-care, it can still build resentment on the other party. And again, we can't control what the other person does. This is an important piece. I really find it helpful because honestly, from being a fighter, I've learned how to be selfish in a very productive way. What I mean by that is prioritizing what I know I need to get done to perform, even if it comes at the cost of what other people think of me. Even my friends, like Rob, I wish you were still here. You could like bust my chops a little bit. I've rescheduled on Rob and like my other friends before because of like training. I was tired, amongst a variety of other reasons. Not all just like positive self-care things, other things too. But sometimes I'm like, hey, I'm not going out because I'm tired. I got to rest. I got a fight coming up, those types of things. And people can be like, whatever. But really, like, my buddy Rob's stuck around through all of it. My buddy Luda's stuck around through all of it because they're real friends, in my humble opinion. Those are the people I get to keep around me. People that aren't cool, that you get to really evaluate, do I want these people around me? That's the last piece I would say, from the moms out there, the parents out there, the dads, the professionals, the athletes, the performers. If your friends are giving you a hard time for not showing up, I would invite you to think about, how much of a friend are they and how much of that do you want in your life? Because you're going to be dealing with that with the rest of your life if that's what you're attracting. And that's what you're allowing in. So that goes back to the boundaries too, creating hard, clear boundaries. But I'm going to stop ranting here because again, now we're attempting to go even further into it. And I love talking about all this, but hopefully that was valuable. I'm going to, again, hop off. We are going to update the blog this week so you can check all the data that I'm referencing, the science behind it, the recaps on all of that good stuff. And with that being said, I will see you guys most likely tomorrow during my live stream pop up for a workout. But if not, I will see you during the week either way. Peace, y'all.